Hello, everyone, and welcome to a slightly smaller edition of the Wednesday Whip Around this week. It is just myself, Stephen Paletti, and Hugh McLean joining me this week. You'll notice that Ant is not here in the host chair. He's been called away on some personal duties. And so after first choice, the second choice, the third choice, and the fourth choice all said no, they got me in. And you're stuck with me for the next half an hour or so. As I said, joining me is
sixth choice, I think, Stephen.
As I mentioned, joining me is Hugh McLean. Hugh, how have you been over the last few weeks?
I've been quite well, Stephen. Thank you very much. I can tell you now that I'm speaking to you from Melbourne. Thankfully, the fire's on in the background because it is windy, wet, and there are brass monkeys queuing outside welding shops as we speak. It is really cold.
It is not much warmer up here in Sydney, but so you can keep your cold. You can keep your cold weather down there in Melbourne because it was about 14 degrees here today, and honestly, I froze the second I walked out the door. So you can keep your 7 degrees down there. Thank you very much. Let's get straight into it. We will start off with possibly one of the biggest fights in Australian boxing history in recent memory, as we have George Kambosos Jr. going up against Devin Haney this Sunday, and that one's coming from Marvel Stadium in Melbourne. Kambosos, of course, undefeated at 20-0 in his professional career. Is it fair to say that this is one of the biggest fights in recent memory in Australian boxing, Hugh?
Absolutely, it is. This is one to unify the lightweight belts. So Kambosos at the moment comes in as the champion, with Haney as the challenger. He's unbeaten in 27 fights, 27-0 with 15 by knockout. So he does have the credentials. I don't think he's fought a fighter quite the class of Kambosos in the past. But look, you can only do what you can do to get there. He's there on his record alone, and yes, it's going to be one heck of a fight, this one.
Are there any stories on the undercard that we should have to be looking out for, or is this one of those boxing cards where it's simply all about the main event?
Oh, well, the main event's the go on this one. Haney is a fighter who he's very adaptable. He has got a lot of dynamite in his gloves, but he doesn't mind the long haul either. He's been down before in the later rounds and come back strongly to win on points. He's also got a good record, as I say, 15 knockouts in 27 bouts. So he's probably the best rounded of the fighters that Kambosos has fought. But again, Kambosos is different level to what Haney's come up against in the past. So it'll be good to see whether Haney can step up to the plate and really take it to Kambosos. I fancy Kambosos in this one, but not without one heck of a battle.
Give us a prediction.
Kambosos in 9.
Oh, TKO or straight knockout?
No, TKO. I think Haney will go with Kambosos, but Cambosos will be too quick and too strong.
You know, there was an article that dropped on the Sanctum website in the last couple of days talking about some of the best Australian coaches of all time. It was a top 10 list, and on that list, one of those names was Johnny Lewis, one of Australia's most famed boxing trainers. You know, some big names under him: Jeff Fennick, Jeff Harding, Costa Sue. That really was one of the, I guess, with the Socceroos, you've got the golden generation, that 2006 squad, and you could say that during Lewis's prime as a coach, you had the golden generation of Australian boxing. Is Kambosos the answer to create the next golden generation? Like, is him being successful the starting point of all of this?
Absolutely, no question. Kambosos has been. He's flown a bit under the radar, let's be honest. He's not had the profile that, say, Fennick had in his day or Harding had in his day. But he is every bit as good in terms of his potential impact on the world stage. And again, he is world champion. You can't say any further than that. And he basically took the belt in a very hyped, in America anyway, fight against Lopez. Lopez is a very arrogant fighter. And look, his arrogance might have tripped him up a little bit, but I think Kambosos shocked him with his power, shocked him with his speed. And look, certainly, I don't think personally Haney is any better fighter than Lopez was. Yeah, I mean, there was an article on one of the current affairs programs just on Sunday night, which brought Kambosos to the attention of a lot of the Australian sporting public. I think that attention will grow after Sunday for certain.
It should definitely be a good contest, and you can check that one out on Main Event and KO. We'll move on to our next topic now. The ALeague men's season has wrapped up as Western United took out a 2-0 victory in the grand final on Saturday night against Melbourne City. Western United took the lead, in the second minute off a corner, which Nuno Reis put into the back of his own net. An unfortunate turn of events. And then Alexander Prijovic in the 30th minute gave Western United the 2-0 lead that would be enough to give them the victory. Melbourne City absolutely struggled in this one, despite dominating like all the statistics. Like they had 200 more passes than Western United. It was 64% possession, 82% pass accuracy. Like they absolutely dominated this game, and yet they couldn't find a way past Jamie Young and Western United. How important is this victory for Western United in building their profile, given that they still don't have a stadium?
Yeah, very true. Greatly important, I would have said. Look, the general perception is still that football in Melbourne is victory in city. Western United, they've been in the league, 3 years now? It's taken time to get a bit of traction. And look, I don't think anybody really favoured them, shall we say, against victory, and very few people would have favoured them against City either. But early goals in finals are worth their weight in gold, aren't they? They put the opposition on the back foot straight away. And I don't care what anybody says, finals are not just any other game. They have their own sort of aura about them for the competitors. A second-minute goal in a final is not the same as a second-minute goal in a just a general home and away game, because the level of nervousness is up already for a start, and it's not as easy to just switch off and play in a relaxed fashion, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, that early goal from victory really did make a lot of from Western United really did make a lot of showing a victory bias there. Really did make a lot of difference to this one.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. It never felt like City were able to quite get going the way that they wanted to, and that showed. Obviously, John Aloisi has a history in coaching, and this was kind of, a lot of people consider this his last chance. He had a reputation amongst fans of the sport in this country where any time Aloisi's name would be thrown around, it'd be like, anyone but Aloisi. And he's come in and he's helped Western United win the league with one of, if not the oldest squads in the league at a time when youngsters are dominating the headlines. Goran Qual, Reno Piscopo, there's Iran Kunda from Adelaide, the youngsters dominating. Is this going to kind of rethink the way that teams recruit, in the sense that maybe going the older route is the way to go if you want success, as opposed to handing the keys to the kids?
I think the general thinking is, well, the best thing is to have a bit of a balance, isn't it? Obviously, the experienced old hands against pairing, I should say, with a bit of youth and speed and whatever that brings. Look, if you look at the Brisbane sides that won a couple of ALeagues back sort of 10 years ago, the Melbourne Victory sides that have won, they have been on the older side of the scale if you look at average ages of the team. So there is something in that. Obviously, and I'll get back to the early lead again, Western United, they might not have had a heck of a lot of the ball, they might not have had the majority of the shots, etc., but what they did have is the know-how to close the game out. And I think it went a long way in this particular match. If City had got the early lead, who knows, it might have been a very different story.
Yeah, it definitely might have been a different story. And speaking of City, in the week leading up to the game, Jamie McLaren was talking about how it was kind of like a dynasty that they were creating down there at City, but 3 straight grand finals, yes, but they've only had the victory in one of them, bookended by losses. Like, where does Melbourne City go from here? Do they, because they're clearly still one of the best sides in the league, but do they begin to get that reputation as they're unable to finish the job?
Well, City won the Premier's Plate. Let's not forget that. So, you don't become a bad football side overnight, do you? I mean, they've still got that particular level of ability. So what you look at, I suppose, is, well, the first thing you look at is what are they going to lose from that particular squad? Obviously, there will be players that move on. How do they look at regenerating that squad? My thinking is they wouldn't want to lose the level of experience that they've got if they can particularly help it, because that seems to be the area in which they haven't quite got the handle on it, doesn't it? They've not only lost those 2 grand finals, but they didn't play particularly well in either of them.
No, they didn't. Like, they definitely didn't play well against Western United. The Sydney FC game that was decided in extra time, so it's not like they played badly, but they didn't do anything out of the ordinary, and it took a.
From my memory, Sydney was well and truly the better side on the night.
Yeah, they definitely were in that fixture in 2020 in the COVID season, and then the 2021 decider, which was in Melbourne, it took a red card to Luke Bratton for City to absolutely to put space between them. So it's not like they've been far and away the best side in any of these grand final performances. I think that City's going to be in and around the conversation again next year. Like you mentioned, good sides just don't just fall away overnight, unless you're Manchester United. But yeah, it's going to take a lot of work for City to get back over that hump again. They are going to lose a couple of key pieces, but I wonder how much that's going to, how much losing those key pieces is going to hurt. But it is City. They'll find a way. They have the last few seasons, and I'm sure that we'll all be watching with wonder as they go towards their journey next season.
Well, what City does have is the know-how, isn't it?
Yeah,
they've got people in the back room that know what they're doing, they know what sort of squad that they want, and they know how to put that squad together. Now, as you said, they'll lose a couple of key pieces. Where they go next season depends on how they replace those pieces. And they've got people pulling the strings that know what they need and know how to get it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. I think the only miss that City really had in the last couple of years in terms of player personnel has been Manuel Pucciarelli, and I don't know whether that's whether that was a rift between him and Kisnorbo, whether that was or whether that was something else entirely. There's rumours floating a buzz around the footballing world as to what actually went wrong there, because Pucciarelli did not see a lot of game time. So if City can avoid another one of those, then I'm certain that they will come back and be able to be in and around the top of the table again. We'll move on to our final topic now, and that is the story of an Australian cyclist named Jai Hindley, who won the Giro d'Italia over the weekend. He becomes just the second Australian to win a Grand Tour event after Cadel Evans finishing second. Hindley finished second in this event in 2020 and then had to pull out in 2021 after suffering an injury. Just how important do you think this is going to be for Australian cycling? Well, it's not the Tour de France, which everyone knows is the big one, but when Cadel Evans won that, it created a boom in cycling in Australia. Could this be the next coming of Cadel Evans?
Well, it certainly could be. One thing you know about Australians, the Australian sporting public in general, is that they love a winner. The media in general loves a winner. And what this will do, well, the first thing it will do is it will put cycling out there in the back pages of the paper. You'll see Jai Hindley's photograph on the news and in the newspapers and on the internet. People will become more aware of cycling and more aware of the fact that we have an Australian that is doing well. I mean, you've only got to look at, we were talking before about Kambosos and going further back, Fenwick and Harding and those sort of boxers. You saw what happened when Ash Barty won Wimbledon. I mean, you couldn't turn on the telly without seeing news of Ash Barty or Ash Barty's picture or video or whatnot for a good few weeks afterwards. And look, certainly cycling's not as high profile as tennis in this country. I wouldn't kid you otherwise. But what this could do is just increase that awareness and get people interested. And if that's the case, well, that's the first step, isn't it?
It is. Does like for the profiling stuff and everything you were just talking about, does Hindley have to do well at the Tour de France to continue that, or do you think if for whatever reason injury, touch wood that he doesn't, but or something like that results in a less than ideal performance? Does this victory do enough to keep the appeal there going forward for the remainder of this season and into next year?
Look, I think so. Again, it gives the public something to be interested in. Now, obviously, and again, we touch wood that this doesn't happen. Obviously, if Hindley is involved in a fall and does an injury or is ruled out of the tour within the first couple of stages, then it sort of dilutes the effect a fair bit. But if you look at previous tours, before Cadel won, say, when the likes of Phil Anderson were competing in the tour regularly, riders like that, the sports media and the sports public in general would get excited just when an Australian won a stage, So that win in the Giro will certainly give him a bit of bounce, shall we say, for a couple of weeks or so. A good showing in the Tour will frank that. An early mishap in the Tour will have people saying, well, okay, he's out of the Tour, but he's won the Giro and he's given it a good old Aussie crack in the Tour de France. So it's a good start, which I don't think has a negative side to it.
No, I don't think it. I don't think it does either. It's just going to be it'll be a good be a good long-standing performance there, regardless of what happens. Because as you said, Australians love a winner. We're very fair weather when it comes to that. We'll support our teams when they're winning, and we'll show up week in, week out when they're winning. But if they're not, then we're happy to sit back and watch them on the couch. So it's a funny way that things happen in Australian sports, unfortunately. But for Hindley at least, Hindley, sorry, we wish him all the best as he moves forward into the Tour de France. And that will do us for this week here on the Wednesday Whip Around. As always, we've got plenty of exciting action coming your way at theinnersanctum.com.au, not only on the written side, but across our vast array of podcasts. And you can check all those out wherever you get your podcasts from. Then there's a network page on theinnersanctum.com.au that will link you to all of those. As well as Pairs of Pod, which you can watch here on YouTube as well, which is obviously where you're viewing this. So we thank you very much for joining us this week. Hugh, have you got any closing thoughts on any of the topics that we got to tonight that you didn't get to, or anything that you want to pump up?
No, well, apart from to wish ferocious Kambosos and Jai Hindley a very heartfelt wish of good luck in their respective endeavours over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll have certainly a world champion in the boxing, and geez, wouldn't it be nice to have another world champion in the Tour de France?
It would be very nice indeed. Thank you very much for joining me this week, Hugh, and thank you very much for tuning in, everyone.